IVM.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach Podcast. I am Ashdin, Doctor, your habit coach, and today we have a very special guest with us. She is a badminton player for the Indian team and she's been playing for the last 12 years for the Indian team. And there's always something so fascinating to learn from athletes because there's a mindset that we just do not get as people who have not played in sports or have been on the field, because there's a mindset shift that takes place. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with our guest today. She's also a fellow podcaster, and her podcast is going to be starting on IVM in a couple of weeks. So please do stay tuned for that. Join me in welcoming Tanvi to the Habit Coach Podcast. Hi, Tanvi.
Hi, Ashdin. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I think this was meant to be. I remember I reached out to you a couple of months back. I was really fascinated with your long fast, your 3-day fast, and how it was all about breaking, that mental barrier beyond a point. And here I am today on your show. So I'm super excited. And super excited to be doing this podcast with IVM. It's called the Millennial Athlete and will be launched in a couple of weeks. It started off, as purely something for fun. During the lockdown, a teammate and I decided to, we've been wanting to do something on these lines, like a chat show or a podcast, because we're two passionate millennials. True to the name of our podcast, two passionate millennials who've been a part of the Indian sporting system for the longest time. We've been there, done that, really lived the athlete life, so to say, the disciplined existence and everything that comes with being an athlete. We've done it all. And we feel strongly about a lot of issues about the Indian sporting system. And we wanted to put our voice out there. And, in addition to that, I think every athlete has a unique journey. Things very often that journalists don't touch upon. It's whether it's mental health, whether it's diets, nutrition, a lot of things. So we did have a season 1 during the lockdown. And we were lucky to have some guests like Rohan Bopanna and Saurav Ghosal and Ashwini Ponnappa, Deepa Karmarkar, some of the top athletes across different sports. We had about 12 episodes, and each episode was so unique because it was interesting to see the candidness with which these stalwarts were actually voicing their opinions and being so forthcoming with things like, Rohan Bopanna was talking about how, when he achieved, when he won some title in Austria and there was nobody, to celebrate with, we don't realize sport.
Correct.
You see the glamorous side of sport, but it does, especially in individual sport, can get quite lonely at times because you're traveling on your own and you're doing everything, on your own and no one to celebrate with.
Absolutely.
And, things.
And there's so many aspects to sport that we just don't understand being on the outside.
Yeah.
Like, for example, just the mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you started this journey of becoming a professional badminton player, how did it start? What was the starting point? When did you realize that, this is something that I can be a professional at? This is something that, I can make a big change in my life with?
Yeah.
Was there a moment like that? Like,
Absolutely.
How did it happen?
Absolutely. So, it started off, when you're a junior, everything's new, right? The training sessions, it's a high of its own, the training sessions, and you're doing everything for the first time, whether it's following a diet or talking to a psychologist or, playing those high pressure matches. So it's all about the thrill and, all of that. But then there comes a time when you do have that conversation at home, how far can I take this? Especially with coming from a metro city, around the 10th standard is when this conversation does come up, how far do you see yourself progress? And in my case, I think it did happen. I think when I won the junior national title in Jaipur is when it actually, it seemed to fit in and moving to the national center seemed like the logical step. I was training.
Was that a difficult conversation to have at home?
Pretty much, because I was academically bright as well. I was doing well. So to actually, I tried balancing it to the extent that it could be balanced, and made sure that I gave academics its due priority. But I did, when I had that conversation with my parents, we did feel that, okay, let's give it a shot. And once I got selected into the national squad, I had to move to the national center in Hyderabad from Mumbai. That was when.
And what does it feel like to represent your country? What is that?
So throwback to that day when my first Indian kit arrived, and I think the whole day I was just turning my back and clicking pictures with large T India, and it was like this. Your heart was literally swelling with pride. So very, very special moment. I was 15, I remember, in the 10th standard, and that was a very, very special moment, because it's you feel like you're doing something for your country, and it literally gives me goosebumps even today.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And you said something so important. You were in the 10th standard when all this happened.
Yeah.
Correct? That's really young.
Yeah.
And now at this age, you're talking about mental health and stuff like that. At 10th standard also, all this stuff must have added to some mental pressure, right?
It was
like
a perpetual...
winning, losing is a different thing altogether, right? The feelings that you have. And how does your mindset grow? Because I'm sure at 15, you would have to have a very, very different mindset from your peers in order to be a professional.
Yeah. So they say, athletes mature early on because you're dealing with life situations. You're kind of making life choices, and you have to grow up, because ultimately on the badminton court, you're alone. Whether you're a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, you're dealing with high pressure situations. Sometimes team selections, even at that age, are based on your performance in a particular event. So you have to adult pretty early on. It was a lot of balancing, a lot of time management at 15. You had to be mature about a lot of choices that you made, when your friends were maybe enjoying a little bit of going out and, having a little bit of fun, and you had to be super disciplined and put your blinkers on, and because you had goals to achieve and you had commitments.
Where did you learn discipline from?
Sorry?
Where did you learn discipline from?
I think my lifestyle just inculcated discipline in me without me realizing. And maybe my personality type was someone who wanted to excel at everything. So a bit of a perfectionist. So whether it was academics or extracurriculars or being head girl in school or winning that national title, I wanted it all. It all kind of culminated in the 10th standard, because that was like a critical, you're just moving out of your juniors, and you're also in the 10th, and you have the opportunity of being head girl, and I wanted to do it all. So I think that just, you push yourself, and you just kind of get more and more disciplined if you want to achieve what you want, what you've set your eyes on.
But is that a personality type? Have you noticed this amongst other athletes as well?
I think it's a personality type. I've definitely seen athletes, zone in. So goal setting is something that just comes with being an athlete. And say it's PV Sindhu preparing for the Olympics. It becomes like one, it's a task to achieve. So nothing comes in the way, whether it's, giving up your favorite food. It could be even something like that's not necessarily unhealthy, but it's just your favorite food. So you give it up so that you become that extra mentally tough. Or it's not used.
Oh, you'd give it up for the mental toughness.
Yes. So it's something like sacrifice because I have an event coming up in 6 weeks. So it's that, it's so much of a mental switch, these things, so, or not using your phone.
And you can't cheat yourself and say, I'm giving up Karela for 15 days.
That's
you
not
can't
the
give up
point.
Something that exactly.
I don't think she had a choice, though. It was her, Mr. Pulela Gopichand, the national coach, who enforced it on her. But she toed the line because she knew that, yes, it's time for business now.
Correct.
Yeah, so...
And so there's this whole concept of discipline. There's this whole concept of goal setting. going after something, correct?
Yeah.
Did someone teach it to you? Did you learn on the job? Like, what was the role of a coach, or was it the role of a parent? Who comes in and actually like puts this in your head?
So being an elite sports person today, I mean, when you want to do professional sport, it is definitely a team effort. So whether it's yes, you need a coach who is also like your guide or mentor. You need a parent or someone who you really trust and have faith in, who has your back all the time. You have your trainer, you have your psychologist, nutritionist. So it's like a team effort, and the athlete should only be thinking about going out there and performing. Everything else should just be like, a support system all the time. So when you're talking of this setting goals, and it's a team effort all the time. It's a team effort that goes into preparing for an event, or if you're having if you're going through a slump, then you calibrate, because it's there may be a physical angle to it, there may be a personal issue that you're dealing with, which the psychologist may throw up. Your coach may feel that you're not pushing hard enough on court, or there may be a technical angle. So it's so complex that it's always a team effort. So,
but what is your goal? Like, for example, like when you started at 15, was your goal Olympic medal? Was your goal number one? Was your goal what? How did you even picture and visualize your goal? The reason I'm asking is that when we start off even thinking about habits, right? We want an end point, or we want something that we want to achieve in that process, right? So when you started off, were you thinking endpoint as like the ultimatum world's best? Were you thinking endpoint as in right now only India best, then after that world best? Like, how did you do that level of setting goals?
I think to start with, it was, I just want to be a better version of myself every day. So that was a very, very powerful driving factor, at least in my case, that I want to wake up and today I want to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. So it started off, purely as that. But then as things progressed and you got deeper into the sport, I think badminton was at a, I was lucky to be a part of this golden era. So badminton was really on an upswing. Pullela Gopichand had just won the All England title, and he had come back, he had become national coach. The national center kind of came up in Hyderabad, and we had Saina Nehwal, we had Parupalli Kashyap. We had a whole host of players who were playing at the highest level. If you look at the sport today, we have about 7 or 8 men's singles players in the top 30. I think no other sport can boast of that level of competition. So, for me, it was always, if Saina can win a Super Series title, maybe I have a shot. So it gave me that belief. Someone's done it, I have a shot. So that was always, yes, but the goal was always to play at the highest level of world badminton. Settle for nothing less. National titles were always a stepping stone. They helped you to iron out a lot of issues. And then every time, we have the circuit is, it starts with challenger events, then you move to Grand Prix Golds, and then the Super Series. And then, of course, you have the world events like the World Championships and the Olympics and the Asian Games and all of that. But we saw these players, we saw the way they trained. We were, when I moved to the National Center, I was training with them. So it was like a live demonstration, every day. So it was just positive reinforcement, and you were just supercharged every single day.
Very interesting. So guys, I want to take a break and explain this, from what I've understood from what Tanvi was saying. One is that when she started, she wasn't thinking about like the big end goal. And that is important, because very often we start by thinking, the biggest end goal. And then as a result, we start wavering, because after 7 days, that goal doesn't seem as reachable as possible. But when you start and you break it down and being better the next day, better the next day, better the next day, each day getting better and better and better. Once you get that momentum, then you can start thinking, I can actually go for that. And that gives you that drive. So even with our habits, don't start off by necessarily giving yourself the hardest goal. Start off by saying, am I better today? Am I better today? Am I better today? And focus on that as you go along. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. In fact, I would like to add something there. We had a very interesting conversation with a millennial champion athlete who we're bringing on our show, and you'll probably get to listen to the episode in a couple of weeks.
Lovely.
So his name is Chirag Shetty. He's 23 years old and just won the Arjuna Award a couple of weeks ago. And, when he moved from Mumbai to the National Centre, nobody would have thought that he would become the stalwart men's doubles champ that he is today. And he himself, wouldn't have imagined the transformation in whether it was work ethic, whether it was game style. But as luck would have it, we had a Malaysian coach who came in and spotted this guy and broke an existing partnership. So he teamed up. He created this new partnership between him and this other guy who was a smasher called Satvik. And he created this partnership, and he literally told both their parents that you give me 2 years and I will make sure that these guys win an Olympic medal in the next 2 to 3 years. And at that stage for Chirag, Chirag literally laughed it off. But he said, okay, no harm in trying.
Correct.
And block by block, they created history by winning a Super Series title, the first men's doubles pair to actually go out there. Yeah, so things happen.
Block by block, step by step.
Absolutely.
But tell me, you get to spend time with these fantastic athletes. What do you learn from them? Right? So we are learning from you about your mindset. How do you learn from them? And what have you picked up through conversations, through work ethics, to observation? What have you picked up along the way?
So one thing that's really stuck with me, I think it's now a part of me, very much a part of me, is hard work. So there's a lot of debate about, working hard versus working smart. There's a lot of the Asians as a race, as a culture, we believe in putting in the hours, and our work ethic is usually on point, as opposed to the European way of doing things, which is a lot of qualitative work and shorter duration, more quality. That's how they train as well. But one thing that stuck with me is that you need to put in the hours. There is no shortcut around hard work. I'm not saying donkey's work or, just being on the court because for the sake of being there. It has to be charted out. It has to be qualitative. It has to be, in tune with the goals you have, or the work areas that you need to come up on. But you need to put in the hours, because working hard has something to do with your mind as well. There's a mental switch that switches on only when you know that I have given my 120% in training. I have done everything in my capacity, whether it's the running or the agility work or the work in the gym or the standing strokes, the technique work. I've done everything. And then you know that, then you seem to even let go. You let things flow. And then when you actually go for a tournament, you can actually, play to your potential without any mental, baggage, something holding you back that,
if only I'd done this.
If only I'd done this, yeah.
Correct. That's a beautiful thing, because we're constantly told, work smart, don't work hard. Work smart, don't work hard. And I completely agree with you. When you put in that hard work, you feel that there is something nobody can take away from you.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. It's like, even with this podcast, I know the amount of hard work that goes into making it. Like 300 episodes, I know how much I have to go and research and everything. And I know that cannot be taken away. And that's where I believe that my strength lies as well. That hard work is important. Working smart, of course.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be efficient.
Yeah.
But it's not the game of efficiency only.
Absolutely. So as an athlete, I think I identify best with Rafa. Just everything that he personifies, whether it's the passion with which he plays. He's put in the hours, whether it's in the gym, whether it's in his training. He's so intense about his work, and he means business when he's on court. Even his warm-up is, he won't get on court till he's dripping. So, I really look up to him as a sporting icon, and that's how I try to train that way as well. You kind of visualize what you're going to do in a match situation, and you train with that intensity, and it's going to come on match day. There's no two ways about it. So
it's visualizing that intensity and then acting on it?
Yeah, so say I'm getting into a training session, I will kind of visualize what I want to do for the day. And then when I'm in that training session, I'm pretty much in a zone, and it kind of I mean, the intensity and the visual thing happening inside you is kind of it's complementing each other. It's happening simultaneously.
Tanvi, interesting question. Sorry, you remind me of something. When did you first feel that zone? When did you first feel that sense of flow?
Interesting question. I think I have to think back now about this. But it was probably during the national championships when I won my first junior national title. It was from the first round, though I had a couple of three-setters, couple of close matches. There was a certain, I was in a zone. And like I said, the way my lifestyle had become, balancing school, balancing extracurriculars and the sport, training twice a day. It was like, I think my default mode was that super zoned in kind of mode. And I took that into every match that I played. So I would visualize a little bit before, whatever basic game plan you get into every match with or for that particular opponent. And then I was also adapting to the situation as was needed, because on the badminton court the situation is dynamic. You cannot control everything. The opponent is trying to break your patterns. It's you against your opponent, so you have to adapt, you have to be aware of what is going on. And that happens perfectly well because the body senses everything. You don't need to. The moment your mind interferes is when the problems start. And when you're
in fact, I was going to ask you, when you get into that zone, do you feel the world disappearing away from you?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no thought. You don't have to think. The body knows. If you've trained well and if you've done everything on point and you're in that zone, the body just flows.
Very interesting. And can you tap into that on demand now?
So yes, you can. And I would say for me at least, the trigger is the work that I put in and the intensity with which I put in the work. I know that if it's done in a particular way and with 100% commitment, 120% commitment, I would say, when I go into a tournament, I can switch on. But if that little bit of doubt that I have fallen short or I've not trained as much or I've cut corners, then maybe not.
And if you're constantly living life at 120, correct, 120%, right? Are all aspects of your life lived at 120%?
So that's a very interesting thing because we've seen a lot of burnout in athletes. So yes, we have a tendency to take that same level of intensity into everything we do in life. We want everything to be 100% and at 100% efficiency, but that's something we've learned. I make a conscious effort to switch off, to take breaks. That's something that I've learned, because it is important to take those breaks at the right time. Otherwise, we've seen a lot of athletes burn out early on, especially in Asian countries. Because you peak early, you become world champion or Asian champion at 16, and then 20 you're nowhere. You've quit the sport because you're done mentally. We don't want that happening. So now a lot of the sports science, the European influence, I would say, on the athletes, because we're traveling a lot more and we're exposed. Social media we can see what someone in Denmark is doing and someone. Yeah. So we are trying to embrace those concepts, of taking breaks, switching off, cultivating another aspect of your personality. So it's a holistic approach over the 200% commitment approach. Yeah.
You just upped it by 80%, huh? Too good. We started 120, now it's at 200. But Tanvi, it's so interesting because one of the things I completely believe in, although I'm not an athlete, I believe that don't work like an athlete, recover like one. So don't work out like an athlete. Don't go push, but make sure that at least recovering like an athlete, because the whole funda is that the growth takes place in the recovery as well.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Yeah.
Like we know about all the athletes, I'm sure you must have obviously read all this, but the amount they sleep, correct? Sleep is such an important recovery tool, right? your ice baths, your mental recovery, all of that has to tie in together.
Yeah.
You know, why don't you just give everybody a sense of what your day typically looks like? Right, guys, we're recording right now at 7. I think it's the latest I've ever recorded a podcast. And if you can hear a kee, 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 kee in the background, it's because there are crickets outside in the evening, which is why we don't record in the evening. But this is the only time we have with Tanvi. So that's why you're recording here. So, Tanvi, tell us what your day is like. How is it so packed? What are you doing?
So, Ashdin, it's a pretty packed day, which is why even our upcoming podcast, we end up recording at 7:30, and the recordings go on for 2.5 hours. But yeah, that's sometimes at the end of a long day. So throwback to days at the National Center, when days would my day would start at 4:30 a.m. My first session would be at 4:30 a.m. and we would have 3 sessions in the day, so 4:30 to 7:30, 10:30 to 12, 12:30, and then 4 to 6 in the evening, followed by some recovery or something like that.
So 3 in the morning, and then 1 in the evening.
No, 2 in the morning.
Or 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. 4:30 to 7:30, 10:30 to 12.
Okay, and these are what, 3-hour trainings?
Yeah, pretty much.
But why would you have them in sessions? Like there's a break in between?
So you train for something in the morning. So say we do an on-court session at 4:30, and then our gym training would be, or a running session or something physical would be mid-morning. And then in the evening, you would come back on court, maybe something technical, maybe something physical. It varies depending on which tournament you're prepping for, whether it's off-season, on-season. So it keeps changing.
And do you have athletes that are not morning people as well?
You don't have an option. You have to be able to play at midnight. You have to be able to. So I remember my first. So my roommate comes into. I mean, she joins the academy and she becomes my roommate. And then she was told you have to report at 4 a.m. for a session. And the first day she literally mishit the shuttle. I'm seeing 3 shuttles at 4 a.m. but you grow with it.
Crazy.
You have to learn. You should be able to even play in your sleep. So that's the level that you become like a robo at the end of the day.
Love it. So you have all your sessions, and then you have the evening sessions as well that end by about.
So you finish typically by 6:37, and then you go to the pool or you do something for recovery. And then you eat dinner and sleep. So your day is pretty much, and this is a 6-day routine almost. Some days we used to have a Sunday session. Sometimes, not always. But yeah, and then you travel for tournaments. You get back. So it's a pretty regimented existence. Of course, I'm training in Bangalore now. I'm at another academy where we train twice a day. So sessions would start at around 8:30 in the morning. You'd have 2.5 hour session, and then train again in the afternoon, and then something for recovery in the evening. So my day would probably end by about 6:30, which is why we end up doing all our podcast recordings at 7:30.
That's crazy. So Tanvi, when you're planning and when you have such a regimented day, you must be going bananas, right? Like we keep talking about habits, and how do habits fit into this kind of regimentation? Are habits good for you? Are habits bad for you? How do you play around with it?
So I think you become a creature of routine and habit. Everything, if you want to achieve and you want to be super productive in the day, then you do have to have a routine in place. I'm someone who cannot go to bed without knowing what my next day is going to look like. At least it used to be that bad. I had to have every moment chalked out and know how I'm going to manage the day. That's something. But again, because sport needs you to be a little flexible, and you can't control everything that's happening on the court. I've kind of made that effort to sometimes break those habits and patterns and routine that's become something just a part of you. So
So once in a while, you throw a spanner into the works and see what happens.
No, once
and how you react
once
to
in
it.
a way. So I have this habit of asking my coach the previous night, what are we going to train tomorrow, so that I could come mentally prepared for that session. And sometimes he just he tells
Correct. I
me,
love doing that as well.
he breaks the pattern. So he'll tell me something and it'll end up being something. Now I'm used to it, so I don't ask. But yeah, I go in with an open mind. Okay, today could be a match play. Today could be multi shuttles, or it could be something that we just don't like shuttle runs, which is probably the hardest thing on this planet.
It sounds evil.
Yeah, Tabata and shuttle runs. I think those are like the most evil.
Okay, on the Habit Coach podcast, we love Tabata. You can't say anything bad about Tabata. We have lots of podcasts on Tabata.
It's all about
but
the
shuttle
intensity.
runs, we haven't tried that yet. So, Tanvi, there's so much that I've learned from talking to you. And guys, we're going to be talking about mindset in the next podcast that's going to come out on Thursday. So please do tune in and check that out. But, Tanvi, I've learned so much. The first part I've learned was about, the way that you were approaching your goals and approaching, each day at a time. I think that is a beautiful learning for all of us to take on board. Saying that don't just keep making crazy goals. First, get momentum in, then start looking at towards the goal and say, we'll see, dekha jayega. So I'm loving that aspect of it. The second part was becoming a creature of your routine, right? Routines are good, but following a routine mindlessly after a while throws you out, right? It doesn't allow you to be flexible. It doesn't allow for that ability to change and be nimble. Like we talk about agility in sports, right? It doesn't allow you to be agile. So routine is important, but you need those little moments of time when something comes in, and let's see how you handle that now. And I think that's a very important aspect of this. Also, the last part, which was the hard work bit, I absolutely love that concept. You said that you have to focus on your hard work. Why? Because you can work smart. Sure, everyone can work smart. But you need that confidence when you're on the field or on that battleground, inverted commas, that you've done everything in your ability. Correct? And once you know that you've done everything in your ability, that gives you a different sense of confidence altogether. In fact, it's one of the ways that I talk about when we think about stress. Have you done everything in your ability to get rid of that stress? Right? Very often we haven't done that, which is why the stress lingers. Once you know that I have done everything, sab kuch kiya, now let's have fun. I think getting to that point is so important, and hard work is an important part of that. Was I able to summarize what you said?
Perfectly well. I think I just want to add one piece of millennial advice.
Oh, lovely.
That we as a generation are sometimes very consumed with overachieving and always being part of the race. We have this feeling that time is running out, and everything has to be immediate. I want to be world champion in 3 months. But building a champion takes time, takes patience. As Chris Pedra, we had a very special guest on our episode the other day. He's a sports science expert, and he summed it up really well. Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys need years and years of patience, sticking to the grind, the resilience to stick to the grind. And then that's how champions are produced. So what you see is the tip of the iceberg, but the years of hard work, sacrifice, living that disciplined life, making the right choices. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that you need to slow down sometimes, take stock. Just this race that we constantly are obsessed with. It needs to be more of the process-oriented goals rather than being obsessed with that gold medal or that end goal, that end result. So yeah, that's
beautiful.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to put across.
Tanvi, I think this was the cherry on the top because this I know is something that so many of us suffer through because we keep looking around because that's what we're seeing as our gold standards. And because we keep looking around and start comparing ourselves to everybody, we keep saying, I need to push more, I need to push more, I need to push more. But we never stop and look back and say, you know how far I've come?
Yeah.
Like, celebrate that, right? And remember that the hard work will keep coming in. You'll have to keep putting in the work if you want to grow to that level. And that's going to happen. But you have to look back from time to time and like pat yourself on the back, celebrate. And that's, I think, one thing that we're not doing enough. We're not celebrating enough. Correct? We need to be able to celebrate our wins and not just say, okay, what next? What next? What next?
Yeah. Because even when you win an Olympic medal, that happiness you can celebrate for a day, okay, maybe a week if you win an Olympic medal, but then you're back to the drawing board and the same routine. So, it's,
absolutely,
it's the process that brings
we had a Everest climber on our podcast, and he said something fascinating. He was like, he failed twice on the way up, right? So 2 attempts. And each attempt means all your life savings gone.
Yeah.
Right. And I finally made it up. And I asked him a question saying, okay, so you did it. How did you feel 2 weeks afterwards? Correct. And every time you achieve that mad goal, there's always that sense of emptiness afterwards.
Yeah.
Because you're like, ab kya? Yeah. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Correct. And he's like, there's nothing higher than Everest. Yeah. Now what else do I climb? Yeah. And it's so interesting that we put ourselves in that slot. And because he's a dear friend, I knew what he went through and how he came out of it. And that's what I wanted to share with everyone. So you're absolutely right. You have to go back, you have to celebrate, you have to learn from these things.
Perfect.
Super. Thank you so much, Tanvi, for coming on the Habit Coach podcast. Tell us a little bit about the podcast. It's called the Millennial Athlete and it's coming out mid-October?
Yeah, around the 19th of October.
Perfect.
So do tune in. I mean, there's a lot that me and my teammate Shlok, 2 passionate millennials, chatting about everything that a millennial athlete goes through. Whether it's, we've been through the whole sporting system and we have strong opinions. We feel strongly about a lot of issues and we want to put things out there. We also have a few fun guests on our show who will shed some, give us a perspective on the topics that we raise. So do tune in. And if there's anything that you want us to chat about, you can reach out to us on our social media handles. I'm at tanvilad93 on Instagram and Twitter. And Shlok is at Shlok95 on Instagram and Twitter.
93 is the year you were born?
Yes. I'm a millennial.
That's why you had to wear millennial on your...
Smack in the middle.
We were just joking about it before we started the podcast that I am what is known as a millennial elder because I was born in 83, which is the start of the millennials. And Tanvi made fun of me by saying, no, you're just a wannabe millennial. So, yeah. Respect your elders.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And guys, please join us for the next podcast. It's all about the mind space. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com. or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome 180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Intel, for supporting us. So Jasleen Royal came on Storytellers and Storytellers this week with Vineet. It was a really interesting conversation. Do definitely check that out. Hamsini Hariharan is back on the Pragati podcast after an extended absence. Hamsini was one of the original hosts along with Pravan, but she was unable to continue. But we're glad to have her back. She's talking about her experiences since she left. She's been studying in China. Definitely check that out. You'll enjoy that. Abhijit Ganguly was on Cyrus Says a couple of weeks ago, and he had such a great time, and we were so happy to have him on that we asked him to join us for Cock and Bull, and he was on this week. Do check that out. And lastly, I'd like to mention our Tamil show. We've been doing a show called Kadai Podcast Ponniyin Selvan, hosted by Kavita Jiva. She has been phenomenal. She's rewritten the stories in a way which really, they speak to a modern audience. But Ponniyin Selvan is over, and she started a new story, though. The new story that she started is Sivakamiyan Sabatham. I'm sure I mangled that pronunciation, and I'm sure you'll love it if you're a Tamil speaker. Do definitely check it out. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Are you constantly seeking happiness? Wondering how to make the most of every day? How not to let your inhibitions stop you from achieving your goals? It's now time to get your A game on. It's time to unlock your true potential. Tune in to the Empowering series with me, Zarina Poonawalla, to feel empowered in all genres of life. From behavioral skills to management skills, from health to relationships, from mental well-being to emotional well-being, and of course your finances. I've got you covered. With these tips and tricks from me, Zarina, and true life stories from my amazing guests, you're bound to bring your purest to the table. Tune in to the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.